On Mars is some global enterprise journey on self-service. Everyone have a good night last night? Yeah? Super. So for me, it's been great. It's been spectacular, right? I mean, I've learned so much. It's been very insightful, very educational. Above all, it's been fun. It's my first time in New Orleans as well. But I remember the very first time when I first came to the US in New York. And being a tourist, I was walking around with my selfie stick, taking selfies. And very quickly, I found myself getting lost on the streets of New York City. So I thought, yeah, rather than using my phone to navigate and not to get massive roaming charges, I thought what I'll do instead is I'll just ask somebody for directions, as we probably would do. So I stopped somebody on the way and I said, "Excuse me, sir, I'm lost. I don't know where I'm going. Can you tell me where I am exactly?" And the response I got was, "Yeah, you're approximately 40.7128 degrees north and 74.0060 degrees west, longitude and latitude." And I thought, obviously, that's a bit weird. Why would somebody give me that response? So I said, "You must be a data scientist by profession." And they replied, "Yeah, how did you know?" So I said, "Well, I've come to you with a problem. You've not really solved it. What you've done is just confuse me even more. And therefore, my question still remains unanswered." So he looked at me and he said, "Okay, you must be a global analytics lead in a large CPG company working on a global transformational program." And I said, "Yeah, how did you know?" And he goes, "Well, you claim to be in analytics, but you don't seem to know much about it. You're constantly complaining, you're moaning, you're blaming other people, and maybe if you ask the right questions, you might get the right answer." This story is obviously fictional, and the moral of the story is if you ask the right questions, great things can happen, just like they did in Mars with our self-service analytics capability that we rolled out in Mars. So over the course of the next 40 to 45 minutes, I'm going to be speaking about a bit about Mars, what we are as a business, our journey so far to date in terms of our self-service analytics that we've stood up, how we're looking to scale it up now and to reach global heights. I'll be talking a bit about our self-service analytics portal, which has been a great hit. And last but not least, some lessons learned, and we'll leave some time in the end for some Q&A. So let's have some fun, firstly. Who in the audience can name me a brand other than M&M's? Go ahead. Awesome. Yeah, there's some candy here for you. Anyone else? Uncle Ben's, super stuff. Wrigley's, yes, another one. Snickers, awesome stuff. Yeah, awesome. Another one. We've only got 6, by the way. Obvious one, yes. We're limited in chocolate here, but I promise you guys, there's plenty more to come. So brace yourselves. Skittles, yeah, awesome. There's one there as well, and there. Oh, wow, that makes sense, right? Oh, I didn't know that before. Great. So I guess everybody here isn't necessarily oblivious to Mars, which is great to know. So Mars essentially is a global organization. We're founded by the Mars family, so it's a family-owned business. We were founded in 1911. We are pretty much everywhere around the world. We have offices in Australia, in North America, China, Western Europe, Brazil. So we're scattered around the world. On the right-hand side, you'll see all our different brands. We're very big in our pet care segment. Confectionery, as you know, we're in food and drinks as well. So I'm sure everybody at some point in their lives have consumed one or more of our brands in their lifetime. So a bit about me, more importantly, obviously. So I'm Z Shah, and I have a small family. I'm a part-time husband to a full-time wife. But I am a full-time father, a superhero to my 18-month-old son. In my spare time, I'm a keen soccer player, which we call football, which makes a lot more sense, obviously. I'm a United fan, so the image on the right-hand side is the Theatre of Dreams, Old Trafford. So if you ever get to visit UK, please do make sure you go to Old Trafford. It's a great stadium and lots of history and heritage. And the image on the bottom right is an image of the shrine of Imam Hussein, who was a grandson of the Holy Prophet. And it's based out in modern-day Iraq, in Karbala. So I love to travel. I travel extensively in the Middle East. I've traveled a lot of countries that I probably shouldn't go to, namely Iran, Syria, and all those areas. But there's lots of Islamic and biblical history there. So if we look beyond the headlines, there's a great community there and lots to learn. So if you ever have the opportunity, by all means. So why are we doing this? So traditionally in Mars, we've been very a private business. We've not really opened our doors to the wider public, but recognizing that as and when we are trying to digitalize our brand, we really want to interact with a global community out there and not just learn lessons from them, but for us to also give back to that community. We also want to network with you guys who are on a similar journey to us, or maybe ahead of us, or maybe we can hopefully help you to solve common business problems and come into a great platform like this Tableau conference to really do that. And last but not least, our talent acquisition. So we're keen to attract lots of talent. So if you're a data scientist or a business translator, we're very keen to speak to you guys and so hopefully we can entice you with our chocolates and our other brands for you to be part of Mars. So traditionally in Mars, when I joined Mars, what I found in Mars was lots and lots of spreadsheets, as I'm sure you guys can relate to. Spreadsheets that had some very complicated macros, lots of pivot tables, lots of size of a spreadsheet was almost reaching one gig in one particular use case, which obviously affects performance. And last but not least, we had lots of different siloed BW systems, legacy systems that were all over the place. So our North America business was doing their own thing, Western Europe was doing their own thing, China was doing their own thing. So there's no centralized data source that we could rely upon. So as and when we needed to do some global reporting, it was a very tedious and very hard task to get data from all over the world to then kind of compile in a nice and pretty looking dashboard. So a prevalent behavior in Mars today, as I'm sure is very common in your organizations, is we have a spreadsheet which is lots and lots of pivot tables and formulas. We copy and paste our components into PowerPoint presentations, and then we send that across to our users. So going forward now, we know we needed to change, and on that note, I wanted to play a video which kind of talks a bit about the whole digitization of Mars.
Our world is changing. It's fast-moving, consumer-driven, and constantly evolving. But instead of fearing the unknown, the tomorrow breaking on the horizon, we must embrace the challenges before us. Because if we want to be a company that changes the future, then we too must change. Our talent and expertise.
Start that again.
Our world is changing. It's fast-moving, consumer-driven, and constantly evolving. But instead of fearing the unknown, the tomorrow breaking on the horizon, we must embrace the challenges before us. Because if we want to be a company that changes the future, then we too must change. Our talent and expertise, combined with design thinking, data and analytics, and automation, will help us become a smarter, more efficient company. One that drives growth to stay ahead of the competition. It will be a journey, one of mutual respect and responsibility, leading us into a new digital era. So for our associates, yes, the world is changing. It will be rewarding and beneficial for all. And it begins with you, today. This is Digital Mars. Everybody on.
Sorry about the IT issues there. So going forward, then obviously we recognize that we had to change and we really had to get with the times. So what we've done recently is there's a huge program in place to digitize Mars, to get with the times. And one of those key, what you saw in the video, was the use of data analytics in our quest to become more data-driven. So what we've done is we've recently invested in a data lake. That data lake now is going to be the center of the universe for all our data-related activities. So there's a program in place to essentially load all of our enterprise-wide data eventually into the lake, and using that then to build data assets, which we can then publish to the server, Tableau server, to enable for self-service reporting. We've had a bit of a paradigm shift to say, okay, traditionally we use very waterfall methods, but let's switch to agile and adopt those kind of methodologies to deliver MVPs, minimal viable products, which are delivered in 12-week sprints. And these are focused on addressing business problems, critical business problems in our organization through the use of advanced analytics. We're also looking to use other concepts like user centricity and design thinking to really dive deep into a problem and then for us to then make the right solutions using data analytics again. And last but not least, using tools like Tableau and others to really visualize our data. And today, as we're on our very early stages of our journey, it's about showing the users what the art of the possible is with a tool like Tableau and moving away from Excel and seeing the ease of use and just showing them how easy it is, just double click or drag and drop. It's doing great wonders in Mars today. So these are just some of the initiatives that we have in play today. So what does our journey look like with self-serve analytics? And before I begin, I just want to talk about what self-service analytics means in Mars for us. So self-service analytics in Mars is a business-driven initiative to raise data literacy of our associates by empowering them with tools, enablement, and an active community for them to be able to generate their own insights on local and enterprise-wide data. So the key point here is that it's a business-driven initiative. It's about our associates becoming more data literate and adopting new tools like Tableau to then use data analytics in their day-to-day working lives. So before we really began this program, we really scrutinized the user journey and we asked ourselves, what are the key enabling components to really make self-service happen in Mars? And in no particular order, the main objective obviously is to have a thriving community, a self-sustaining community where users can essentially go to, collaborate, knowledge share, they can troubleshoot their own issues, and we have lots of examples of that in Mars, which I'll hopefully speak about later on. We have a structured skill path training program for our users, which is, again, self-learning. So as and when we promote self-service, we're also promoting self-learning as well. So we have over 100 hours of learning on our portal, which users can walk through, and that kind of takes them from almost connecting to a data source all the way to publishing that insight with their teams. The right support model. Now, obviously recognizing that a lot of our users are not familiar with any of these tools, let alone Tableau. So how can we have the right model that, again, almost emphasizes on self-help? So we have that today, and again, I'll touch on that at a later date. We have a portal which we're very proud of, and I think although it's our first version, and there's lots of enhancements to come, it encapsulates a lot of those one-stop shop sort of activities for users to get a license, watch some tutorial videos, get some best practices and some tips and tricks, all the way to then joining a community within Mars, as well as the great community that Tableau has to offer externally as well of Mars. The right governance, so obviously recognizing that a lot of our data is quite sensitive, how do we have the right governance and controls in place to ensure that our associates are using our data correctly and they are authorized to see that data. So unfortunately in Mars, we do have a situation where some of our data is classified. So a good example of that is our HR data, our salary-based data. Obviously, we wouldn't want anyone and everyone to see that. So the right governance according to the classification of the data is paramount to us, and we have that in place today as well. And lastly, and arguably the most important, is data access. So recognizing that how can we democratize data without necessarily it being shackled and almost kind of limited with the governance, having that balance in place to really kind of give users data, and not just through the use of systems, but also let's just give them Excel if they want that. So we've literally, whatever the users want, we have literally put them at the center of every decision we've made. So our journey so far. So the journey really began in October when I joined Mars. I joined Mars and I was a bit skeptical. I remember receiving a telephone call when I was in my lounge watching Dragon Ball Z. Any Dragon Ball Z fans in this? Oh, good. I'm not the only cool one here, which is good to know. So I received a call, and that was the day after I had my interview with them, and they made me an offer, and I was a bit skeptical coming from a management consulting background whether I should join. But nevertheless, I took the plunge, and it's been a great journey so far. So this month is my 1-year anniversary with Mars, and it's been phenomenal. So my marriage really started with Mars in October. Very soon after, I then had an affair with Tableau. So that really started in December when we procured our first server. We procured a 16-core model. We also bought 100 desktop licenses as well. We had a global workshop in France, in our France office, where we really spoke about how we can really use Tableau and everything they have to offer to really kind of drive adoption in Mars widely. And bearing in mind this is a global initiative, we're a global company, we want all of our associates to be empowered with self-service capability. Then in January, the program in earnest began in terms of our self-service. So we were a two-man team. We had Ben, that's Ben Engel in the green, and that's me next to him. And it was a two-man team on our self-service journey. What we were doing essentially up until April was we were working on large transformational programs, but as well as that, on the side, we were also activating some individual and small teams with self-service. And we were showing them proof of concepts, some demos. We were giving them access to the server and coaching them on how to kind of use a web authoring facility to be able to produce their own dashboards. And that was phenomenal. That worked really, really well. So we almost activated 50-odd associates with self-service capability. Some of them had desktops, most of them had a web authoring facility on Tableau server. They went on our Yammer community and they shouted about it. They said, Z, this is amazing. This is super. I'm almost saving 1.4 million in annual savings. And that was phenomenal. And then I received a phone call from the Global Transformation Office in Mars, really, really senior person. And he rang me and he said, Z, look, I've been following the activity on Yammer. Some of the users have been really, really happy. It's great to know. And I was really excited. I thought, yeah, do you know what? Absolutely. We're really, really ready for this. We're killing it. We're going to be amazing. And he stopped me there. And he goes, look, Z, when's your go live date? And I said, oh, September. We're ready for September go live. We're going to have everything we need to do. It's all going to be in place. And he said, okay, well, sorry to stop you there, Z, but I actually want the go live to happen in June. So there was a bit of a 10-second silence there while I let that sink in. And then I said, okay, fine. If that's the you're the Lord of the realm, so let's make it happen. So I spoke to my manager and I said, look, obviously we now need to we'll upgrade our capacity. So then we procured additional server capacity with Tableau server, and now we have a 32 core model, and we also procured additional 100 licenses for desktop as well. Then in June, we had a soft launch, so we launched our portal, and that again, it's the one-stop shop. It's got all our information on there in terms of users getting access to Tableau, where they go for support, getting licenses, training, all that sort of stuff. It's all on our portal. And although it's the first version, the feedback's been really, really good on that. So we launched that in June. In August, then we rebranded our self-service offering to call it My Analytics, to really personalize the whole experience of self-service. And again, bearing in mind, this is a business-driven initiative, so really putting the user at the heart of everything we do. And we started our onboarding plan to really kind of get users onto Tableau, and that included Tableau onboarding calls. So today, on a bi-weekly basis, we run Tableau onboarding calls. That's chaired by Tableau themselves as well. The idea is that as users join this call, we provide a mini induction to really tell them the power of Tableau, where they can go for support internally in Mars and externally in Mars. And then Tableau, the pre-sales team, conduct a demo as well, which kind of introduces users on how to really start their journey in Mars. And that's working really, really well. I think we're averaging about 25 users per session, and it's been happening on a bi-weekly basis since August. We've also started Tableau Doctor Days, and again, the idea is that users can get some one-on-one support. So today it's very manual, but there's a process in place on our portal to really make that automated, so users can go in our portal, they can sign up to a session, and that's booked in, and they can get that one-on-one support. Bearing in mind our users are all over the world, so a lot of these sessions happen via a Skype session. And we also delivered a few bootcamp sessions as well. Now, the bootcamp sessions that we've delivered so far, the idea of these bootcamps is very much tailored to a group of users, and we personalize that by asking them to give us their data, and then we perform the training on their data to really personalize the experience. We ask them, how detailed do you want it to be? What level of user are you? Are you a consumer? Are you an explorer or a creator? And based on that, I work with Tableau to also to put together that plan and then deliver that against that. So in August, really our onboarding and enablement really started. In September, we launched our Global Ambassador Program. So recognizing that we're a global business, we can't go to every single site and do a launch. We have to really leverage some resources on the ground in different locations to really scale out My Analytics, the self-service capability. So today we have about 20 Tableau champions. They're scattered around the world. There is a bit of work to do to kind of reach our Asia-Pac region, but they're predominantly based in Brazil, Western Europe, and North America. So that's kicked off now. And in October then, one of the key activities that we did was the analytics of us. And that essentially is leading by example. We literally monitored everything we did. So every enablement session that we conducted, any community event that happened, we had a register, we took the name down of every single individual. Our portal, the hits on that, we recorded that as well. We've also been monitoring our Yammer usage. So once we rebranded the group, our BI data analytics group to My Analytics, our community in the space of three months grew from about 300 users all the way to 700 plus users that we have today. So we've literally been analyzing every little bit of detail that we can to really tell us how we're doing and how we're performing, for us to measure our successes. So how are we scaling our self-service capability? So as mentioned, this is a dashboard that obviously is anonymized, but on the map, that does tell a true story of where our users are based today. We've been challenged by senior leadership to really reach 80% of our global markets. But today, we've only reached 40%, and that's still good progress, bearing in mind we only really did our soft launch in June. We have 20 ambassadors mentioned, but the key message here is that we have literally analyzed everything that we're doing, and that's the one key takeaway that I would strongly advise you guys to really do to ensure you're measuring your success and your performance in terms of community adoption and Tableau adoption as well. So our approach to really scaling our self-service capability is twofold. Number one is wherever our business users are focused and there's a big number of users of those in that location, we're doing a targeted site approach. So that involves us going out to that location, talking about My Analytics as a capability, what we're trying to do to raise data literacy levels, to get people engaged, and then obviously there's an element of Tableau in there as well, educating users on the use of Tableau, doing some demonstrations, some more bespoke training for them as well. And as and when we leave the site, the idea is that we will stand up a small community of ambassadors who will then represent us, and then who I then speak on a monthly basis to provide updates for the program. They are then almost the face of our program in that respective location. But bearing in mind, we can't obviously go to every single location in the world, and the locations that we can't go to, through the program of Analytics of Us that we've done, we've really been able to find the users around the world who are really engaged, are really active, they're very active in the communities, and we've approached them and said, look, would you be interested in being an ambassador? Some of them said no, because they can't, because we are asking users to go over and beyond their day jobs, but a lot of them, surprisingly, are already doing some form of community initiatives already. So I guess the key takeaway here for you guys is almost, I'm quite confident to say a lot of our users are already doing some form of community initiatives and helping others and training others. So it's really about finding those rather than trying to find new users and trying to entice them to become an advocate or a champion. So that's fundamentally how we're looking to scale out My Analytics. And from next year onwards, it's really about for us to take the message out and do a bit of a hard launch in our business-focused areas to really adopt analytics. So our journey for a typical user goes through the following journey. So today, in terms of awareness, we don't have many initiatives. They may see an odd email, or they may hear through word of mouth, or through the ambassador, they'll hear about the My Analytics program in Mars. Or hopefully they'll have attended our onboarding call or some form of community event that they've heard of. They'll then go into our portal and they will learn about My Analytics, what it is as a capability, what we're trying to achieve, and why they should embrace that. They can download a Tableau license, and it's an extended license, but the idea is that users can almost have a desktop power to really kind of plug their data in and to start to produce their own insights. So now they've got a license, now they can watch some web-based video learnings, which is over 100 hours that we've made available on our portal. So they can watch that, and that's a step through from introducing Tableau all the way down to then producing an insight and sharing that widely with their users on Tableau server. And there's lots of best practices which they can almost kind of revisit as and when they need to, and that kind of encapsulates everything around tips and tricks, some guided learnings in terms of how to adopt best practices, design standards, all that sort of stuff. They have that as well at their disposal to read in their leisure. At this point now, a user would create the dashboard and share that via Tableau server. And then what we encourage users to do is to go on the community and shout about their successes, their experiences, the good, bad, and ugly. How has it been? How can we improve? And they'll typically go on Yammer, they'll say, this is amazing, or they'll say, yeah, I wish we could do this, which we can then obviously take as feedback. But fundamentally, again, what we're also doing is asking them to complete a template which talks about what value they've realized from doing this, from everything end to end. And we recently kicked off a bit of a competition to say whoever gives us the best value story will receive an award. And we've gamified that, and it's worked really, really well. We've had huge interest. Lots of people have responded to us with their value stories. Some of our users have unlocked 40 hours of savings a month. Some of them have realized 1.4 million up to savings annually. So some of those capturing these stories is fundamental to us. And now going forward, it's about how do we document these use cases and make that available for self-service to really inspire other users to also go on a similar journey who may have a similar business problem that they need to solve. So data is obviously critical, and how we in Mars are democratizing that is, as I mentioned earlier, that we have minimal viable products, which are 12-week sprints, and the idea is that we will deliver some form of value at the end of that sprint. Now, business problems can range from any part of our business. It can be from marketing, from sales, from HR, or whatever. And as and when we deliver an MVP, at the end of that, there's typically a data asset that's been created. That data is almost validated, it's prepped, it's transformed, it's ready for self-service. Now those data assets are then published to the server, and then there's a governance process behind that to say, okay, if I wanted to do some sales reporting or to do get some marketing data to run a campaign, I can get access to that by asking the product owner if I can have access, and then that product owner will typically provide access, and then they can get access to that data and start to use web authoring to crunch the data and use that data connection. So that's how we're almost democratizing data. One of the things on our roadmap to mention is the data catalog. Now, we're looking to invest in the data catalog. We're speaking to different vendors, and the idea here is that, again, it will be linked to our portals. If I'm a user and I wanted to have some search for what's available, I can simply search in my catalog to say, I want sales data, for example. And that will list out all the published connections that contain sales data. So that's how we're almost democratizing our data. There's a program in place to really ingest all of our data into our data lake. So our self-service model, what does it look like? So as mentioned, as part of our self-service offering, we are really promoting self-learning and self-help. Now, as and when a user has a technical issue, by all means, they can speak to the Mars service desk who administer the Tableau server environment, and they in turn have Tableau Elite support, which we've also procured, which is great. So as and when there's an issue, we have all the right facilities to remediate that issue. However, functional issues, we actively encourage our users to go onto our Yammer community and post a question. And a good example of that is recently, I remember seeing a post on our Yammer community where somebody asked a question, how can I connect SAP to Tableau? And now typically, if a user went through Mars Service Desk, that could have taken days before that was resolved. But within hours, that was able to be resolved through the community. So somebody responded almost immediately within an hour to say, if you do X, Y, Z, that should get you on your way. And that's one great example of some of the community helping each other out in Mars today. And that's exactly what we're trying to strive for, to create a self-sustaining community that cultivates a culture of analytics in Mars. And as well, and just to mention, we do have an ongoing education program, and our portal is essential to that. So what's next for us? So going into next year, it's very much about how can we build and continue to nurture our ambassadors to really be the face of My Analytics. How can we give them all the tools, the skills, everything to play that role in their communities? We're looking to make some enhancements. I mentioned Tableau Doctor Days. We're looking to add some functionality on our portal for users to be able to sign up to a session where they can get one-on-one support. We're looking to exploit some mobile analytics. So there's some great stuff that we mentioned in the keynote or on Devs on Stage, where one of the Tableau people mentioned that there's lots of stuff coming in terms of mobile analytics. So we're looking to almost utilize and leverage that. So there's a bit of security hurdles to overcome, but I'm sure we'll get there. Some data prep tools. So in our data lake, essentially what we're doing is we are not only ingesting data and democratizing that, but we're also giving our users the ability to pump their own data as well. So, and then obviously using prep tools like Tableau Prep, which is being used on a small scale, and other tools as well. Users can almost use that tool to mesh data from different sources, transform it, and then use a visualization tool on top like Tableau to show that story. I just mentioned, so in that innovation space, which users will have or teams can have, the idea is that they can have that and they can pump their own data, and they can also exploit some other services like PaaS services, platform as a service, like HD Insights, machine learning, RPA, that sort of stuff. So we're looking at ways of how we can almost incorporate that into our self-service offerings. To date, a lot of our processes have been very manual in terms of giving licenses, where people go for support. It's been very manual, so we're looking to automate our processes, and it is very time-consuming. So I guess the key takeaway there is, look at ways of how you can automate your manual processes. And last but not least, the continuous democratization of our data. Now we have data sources all over the place, lots of spreadsheet files all over the place. BW systems. We have Oracle databases, SQL Server databases. How can we get that all into our lake? Is critical for us, and so that's key for us in terms of democratizing our data and making it available for our users. Now, obviously, to mention some of our partners that we've engaged with, it would have been possible without them. Interworks have been very instrumental, as have Pragmatics, especially in our big strategic projects around the world that we've been working with. But in terms of our self-service offering that we've worked on so far, Tableau have been incredibly instrumental. So we've really used their customer success program to really kind of help us. How can we document and measure our performance? How can we document the value that we're getting from a tool like Tableau, and what business problems are we really solving? We've used professional services. I mentioned we have one consultant that I work really closely with to provide that expertise and some advice on how to go about really enabling a culture of analytics in Mars. And last but not least, the pre-sales team have been really good as well in terms of conducting Tableau doctor days, onboarding calls, giving demonstrations. We're looking to really gamify a lot more of our community activity. So a lot of users, a lot of organizations that I've found, what they're doing today is almost doing a bit of a Iron Viz contest within their organization. So now we're looking to do something similar as well in Mars and really engage our end users. So our portal. So that's the homepage of our portal. So this really talks to about our user journey and what we're trying to strive towards. So a user, as when they log onto this, they see what is My Analytics as a program, right? They'll learn about it, what the benefits we're trying to unlock in terms of efficiencies, cost saving, reducing strain in IT, and a lot more efficiencies in them producing their own insights, who typically business users understand their own business problems better than IT. So empowering them with the tools, the skills, the community to produce their own insights. I'm going to quickly step through now in terms of and showing you a demonstration. So hopefully we have more IT issues. Right. So a user now has clicked into the Tableau section, and our portal is very simple. Get a license, get started, further Tableau training and education, and a community. So I won't go through in the license, but when a user clicks in to get started, what they see is a very good introduction, a comprehensive introduction to Tableau. There's a 25-minute video which really talks about what Tableau is as a tool. There's some tutorial videos which they would watch, and then they would try themselves. So there's some simulation as well. And that goes all the way down sequentially from connecting to a data source all the way down to them publishing that on Tableau server. On the right-hand side, there's some recommended reading, do's and don'ts, which graph to use in which context, best practices, some useful links. We've recorded some of our sessions, which have been really, really popular. Again, we've made that available as well. Furthermore, on the Tableau training and education site, again, we've really used a lot of what's out there already in terms of Tableau websites, collateral. We've not really reinvented the wheel. We very much just use what they have already. So users can sign up to classroom training if they want to pay for it, or they can either get an e-learning license as well to really upskill. And again, on the right-hand side, there's extra reading for them to do in their leisure. Now, one of the great things I love about Tableau, probably my favorite thing about Tableau, is the community. And again, we've really linked everything to our tablet, to our portal here. So users can get into the gallery, which I like. It provides that inspiration. As and when they want to produce their own dashboards, they can get some inspiration from what's already out there. Tableau Public, success stories, user groups. So we actively encourage our users to join their own user groups and their locations, bearing in mind, again, we're a global organization. Makeover Mondays, Workout Wednesdays, all that great stuff. We've all linked to our community. And I guess one of the great things, again, of our portal that I really am proud of is the events calendar page. Now, we advertise and market all of our events as and when we are planning on conducting them. And the idea is that users can simply add this to their calendar and they can attend the session. Now, you can see Tableau onboarding calls I mentioned, which happen on a bi-weekly basis. There's some introductions to calculations and advanced calculations we've got there happening. The art of visual science, and a lot of these are already webinars that are published on the Tableau website. So we just literally link that to our portal, and we market that through email, through Yammer, through word of mouth. Our ambassadors go out and speak to the communities, and the interest has been phenomenal. And we've grown now from in a space of a few months up to about 2,500 users, I'd say, on our server, and that's through community, right? So community is absolutely paramount to what we are trying to achieve. Right, so lessons learnt. So although our journey has not been that long, some lessons learned and some key takeaways for you guys would be to firstly think about what outcomes that you're looking to achieve from your program. What is it about? So for Mars, it's fundamentally about us becoming a more data-driven organization, right? How can we get our users engaged to really adopt analytics? That's fundamental to us. And then Tableau is an enabler for that. It's about then giving Tableau which is a means to then produce their own insight. So think about the outcomes that you want. Measure your success, absolutely critical. For us to be able to go to our senior leadership and tell them a story of last month we had about 1,000 users, and now we've grown to 1,500 users. It's been really powerful. And that's how you almost kind of gain that advocacy and that senior leadership buy-in. So our growth so far hasn't so much happened because we've had senior leadership buy-in. It's happened because from success down upwards, we've delivered the success, we've delivered users with the self-service capability. Leadership have seen that, and then they've really kind of bought into everything we're doing, and then they've put their money where their mouths are to really kind of help us drive this forward now. I think building an internal change program is critical as well. So a global organization like Mars, we can't obviously be everywhere. We're already a team of 8 individuals. So it's about leveraging resources on the ground who can represent you. And 9 times out of 10, you never know. A lot of these people may already be in your organizations. So it's not so much work that I thought it would be to really get people enticed and ready for this. But I mean, one example I can give you is an associate in Brazil. He was already doing a lot of these community activities already. So for me, when he heard about the analytics program, he was super keen because that kind of gave him the prominence of everything he was doing and the recognition. So you never know. You may already have some resources in your organizations that are doing something similar. Don't be afraid to fail, I guess. Be agile. Recognize that it's a journey, and there's going to be some learnings, and you may have to re-strategize, and that's absolutely fine. That's okay. Have a robust ongoing enablement plan. I think that's critical to really kind of reinforce the message. Typically in Mars, change is really, really hard. Where a typical associate in Mars has been with Mars for about 30 odd years. So although Mars is a great company to work for, change is unfortunately hard. So having a robust, ongoing enablement plan is really going to kind of keep our associates engaged, and that's working well so far. So I guess that's another key takeaway for you guys. And last but not least, we've spent a lot of time trying to automate our processes, which are very manual today. So now we're looking at ways of how can we automate our dashboard, which tells the story of how we're doing so far. That's, again, today very manual. Licensing process has been really critical. We today have individual requests coming to us. Can I get a license? What do I do? So now we're working with IT to kind of offload some of that and to automate that again as well, integrating our processes as well. So that's another key takeaway for you guys as well, some lessons learnt. So that kind of takes me to the end of the presentation. Please do provide feedback. Before anyone leaves, there is some chocolate outside for you to have to really entice you guys, but I will open the floor up to any questions. Go ahead.
So you're voting.
Sure. So I think today we're not necessarily at that stage at the moment. I think right now the first phase is all about giving users the ability to use Excel data. So they're using Excel data. So as and when there's MVPs, which is being ingested into the lake, that data is already democratized. It's gone through those staging and the ODS and stages for it to be transformed, for them to be used for self-service reporting. We have IT who works on that. I'm not too close to that, but maybe we can connect offline and I can tell you more about how exactly we're driving our data into that. Sure. Yeah. Yeah, so I think in terms of like ingesting the data, I'm not really close to that, so I couldn't honestly tell you, but I can by all means find out, and if we can connect, hopefully I can tell you more about that. Mars, go ahead. Yeah, so it's linked. It's linked. So when you click that, so what we've done is we've used Active Directory to really onboard all of our associates. So a lot of our associates already have access to Tableau Server. They just don't know. But users that do necessarily have access, when they click that button, they can get into Tableau Server with their projects, with their homepage that they have access to. Go ahead.
Do you use Tableau Server as the front page, or do you have sort of a different access page where maybe you embed the Tableau pieces of them, or do they just use Tableau Server?
Tableau Server. So all the projects are embedded on there. So if I today went on my Tableau Server, I'd see all the projects I have access to. And there's two ways to get to that. Obviously, one is the URL, which users type and favorite. But we actively ask users to go into our portal and access it through that way. So we are 8 associates, and that includes a data engineer who's working on getting the data in there. And then there's myself and a few others who are really about community, documenting value, and maintaining the whole process and really communicating my analytics as a program. So we work with other organizations as well within Mars, IT namely, and other sections within that to really kind of work together to provide a good user experience for our users. So I'll come to you next.
Are your users hitting the data lake directly to Spark or something like that? And then the question is, if they are doing that, how are you handling large amounts of data? So we have billions of rows sitting in a table on the data lake. The response on Tableau is going to be tough, right? So how do you guys?
Yeah, so again, we're not quite at that stage yet. So I think right now, as and when a data asset is made available, we'll publish to the server. We'll do some comms to let people know. And they would simply, the end user doesn't necessarily want to know the intricate details behind it. So they just see a published connection, which they can then get access to, and they can start doing self-service reporting. And again, I'm not unfortunately close to the data lake, because there's another program that manages that. But I can absolutely find the answer to your question if we connect offline, and I can tell you more about that. You had a question?
Was this a business-driven initiative, or was this driven by IT?
So we are IT. But the people that we are targeting fundamentally, first and foremost, is business. So our category analysts, the people who are statisticians in different segments, it's really working with those individuals to get them to start using analytics. And a lot of our users are doing some form of that already, the use of Excel. So now this is a more community adoption and creating a culture of analytics is what fundamentally we are about. But also recognizing that there's an IT enablement component that we work with as well, to really make data available and access and on that sort of stuff.
So for us, it's more of a business-driven initiative.
Good.
And we have had a really difficult time getting IT on board. I mean, they won't even administer it
Wow.
at all. So I'm just curious to know, what are some ways that I can go about getting IT involved more in this?
Yeah, so I think it's hard to tell. So for us, it was pretty seamless because the way we are in Mars, any IT-related processes, or Tableau Server, for example, would be managed by IT. It wouldn't be user-managed, right? Now, I have access to Tableau Server. I'm a server admin, and I can, to speed things up, because I interact with end users a lot, I can give them access. But in terms of the maintenance, the upgrade, we work with them. We tell them when it needs to be done, how it needs to be done, We communicate to the users to let them know, look, there's an upgrade coming, so watch out, there'll be some outages and stuff. But in terms of like getting their buy-in, I guess I would probably just say, getting senior leadership to intervene and asking them to really own that platform, and then obviously you guys being business facing to own the whole community and the adoption side of things. And that's how it works for us in Mars today. So working with IT, so the whole platform area data is them, and then the community and adoption is very much us.
So the point is, we need to get them to see the value.
Yeah.
Right? So, so what are some ways that maybe I could help them to see the value?
Sure. So I think I guess the thing that comes into mind is, what are you trying to achieve? So for Mars, we're trying to create a really good experience for our users. So for us to be able to go to our senior leadership and say, we are the owners of Tableau Server today, and we shouldn't be, IT should be. But because of that, we're experiencing issues. We don't know how to administer the server. We don't have the skills, expertise in our team. IT who already have that knowledge in terms of managing other similar processes and platforms, maybe, I don't know, SAP, I'm guessing, or whatever. It just naturally makes sense for them to own that. So it's a bit confusing why that is. Yeah, I would have thought IT would just naturally own that, right?
Maybe it's also about the knowledge of the data. You, as a business, you know the data, whereas IT is not supposed to know that. So they would be interested in having partnership with you because you know the data better than them. So that's where building the analytics is something that we can do kind of free capacity on their side because they don't know today who's building the reports. Maybe there's capability aspects that you can leverage there. Say, okay, if I can help you, partner with you in building the analytics because I know the data, I can free some capacity and maybe some process.
Sure, go ahead.
I have exactly the opposite problem. And so you and I will talk for a bit after this. But I guess what I got out of that was I think the question she was really asking is, did the initiative start because you had upper management support or executive management support, or was this more grassroots?
Grassroots.
And then they got the support.
Absolutely. That's how it was.
Licenses to that number, you've obviously got to have some executive management.
Yeah, exactly. For us, it's been down upwards, right? We showed the value to leadership, and they jumped on it, and they said, look, how can we make this a program? Let's formalize it. Let's just make this a transformation program and use this to really kind of digitize Mars, right? So it was absolutely from grassroots. Go ahead.
So a question for you on the amount of time that you're spending on your different initiatives and how you're kind of helping the business users, particularly around the support aspect. Are you in charge of any analytics projects, or are you solely the support? Because that's the big thing that we found with our company is that because our IT department owns the actual analytics projects, then the teams say it's their responsibility, not ours. And so I'm just curious as to how much time are you allocating to actually owning a project and that is yours to deliver versus just supporting it and kind of being the advocate?
Yeah, so I think My Analytics is more of a program, a capability that we're standing up. It's not necessarily a project, if you like. There's no it's always going to be ongoing, right? And the utopia world for us is our data is all made available, and users are on their own can access it, and they can do what they want. And then the team will eventually get smaller because they're just going to enable them, right? That's the utopia world. Today, however, if there's any technical issues, we have IT who administer the environment. They have Tableau support as well to really remediate the issues. So, but any function, any front end side and adoption, my team regularly monitors our Yammer community and other activities to make sure as and when a user needs support, we literally jump onto that. And what's happening more recently is that rather than us helping a user with a question, the community is jumping in themselves and say, oh, I've had this issue, this is what you do, right? So when you really kind of work with your ambassadors, they are, again, they know their people, who they are, the key users. They then almost kind of are our advocates, if you like, of our program. And it's bearing in mind, our ambassadors are not necessarily Tableau advocates, right? This about our program. They're advocates of our program. And then using a tool like Tableau to kind of, enable them on that journey of data literacy and becoming data driven. So I hope that kind of answers your question.
I have an example for that question. I come from the business side.
Twitter question?
I just forgot my question.
Okay, gentleman over there. Sure.
Oh, thank you. Great presentation, by the way.
Thank
Thank you. How do you measure the success of your program? Is it the number of new ambassadors? Is it the number of new dashboards created? Is it how active your internal
Yeah.
community? What are the most common KPIs for measuring the success of this?
Sure, yes. The dashboard that I showed essentially is everything we're measuring. So our onboarding session, how many unique users are engaged in some form of analytics in Mars, right? We measure our Yammer users, what's their interactivity levels? Are they posting? Are they asking questions? That dashboard was just a face, but behind that there's a lot more detail, and unfortunately I couldn't show. So our Yammer feeds, how active are our users? We're measuring where these users are, who they are, are they a consumer, are they a creator, do they have a license, how many trial downloads have we had, right? All of that essentially is what we're measuring, and what we're seeing is that the numbers are increasing. So today we've only reached 40% of our global markets, and that's even though we've got about 2,500 users. So there's obviously a lot more work to do, and the capitalization in those locations is still relatively small. So I think in total we have about 51,000 users who have a laptop who could do some form of analytics. So there's a massive program in place to really kind of ongoingly drive these people to that. But in terms of how we're measuring that, it's all of those little KPIs. I can talk to you more about that and tell you exactly what those are if we can let offline if you want.
Thank you.
Sure.
So in the portal, have you provided any data lineage? So you mentioned SAP, so your self-service data set, would you have information saying this field comes from this table, that kind of stuff? And I'm also interested in how you're loading the operational data into the data lake, and if IT is involved after that to provide, I guess, a more aggregate view that the users would use.
Sure. So I guess I'll start the second part first. In terms of the data lake stuff, loading the data, because I'm not close to that side of things, unfortunately I couldn't answer, but I can absolutely take that away and tell you about that. Would you mind repeating the first part of your question?
So data lineage. So
right, yeah, okay. So that's going to be addressed in our data catalog. So the idea is that the catalog will be the place, almost like an index, where I can type what I want, right? Now, as and when these data assets are made available, what we're also doing is creating a data dictionary to accompany that. And that data dictionary essentially is where users will know how a field is calculated, how a measure is calculated, dimension, where it comes from, what's the lineage behind that. So that's how we're giving the users the ability to see that lineage through the use of that data dictionary and that data catalog.
So is that a homegrown tool, or are you guys using like DD tables in SAP?
Right now, we've shortlisted a few vendors, so we're still in talks of getting that.
Okay.
We've trialed out the Microsoft Azure, I think, so if I'm not mistaken. But we're looking to get one in. But the idea is that all that, what you just mentioned now, the data lineage part, that will be addressed in that data catalog.
Gotcha. Thanks.
The MVPs that you guys are delivering, is that just the data source or the data set, or are you actually providing an MVP that's like a finished dashboard?
Yeah, exactly that. It's a finished dashboard. It's an end-to-end, almost a mini program, if you like. It's delivered in 12-week sprints. So there's typically a dashboard which addresses a critical business problem in Mars. But also at the end of that, one of the things that we have is a data asset. And that's then kind of democratized and made available for self-service.
Okay, and so you're governing essentially that MVP dashboard that you're delivering?
Not specifically our team.
Uh-huh.
The other team in our organization, the Analytics Open Hub team, which is Center of Excellence, if you like, they will absolutely own that. And the product owner, so as and when we deliver an MVP, there has to be a product owner. And that product owner is generally the person that then kind of the approver or the authorizer for anyone else to get access to that data. So that's how we almost kind of have that governance process behind each data asset that we have.
Great, thank you.
Any other questions? Is on there?
Another question for you on the data literacy side of things as well. So you have your entire company, there's going to be some people that are more data literate than others. Are you working with HR at all to actually hire more data literate people in non-analytics positions? Is that something that you've pursued?
Yeah, that's a good point. So I think in terms of our recruitment, I mean, we are looking for data scientists to be placed in business functions. But in terms of like our engagement with HR, what we have done with HR is almost ask them to say, look, how can we embed analytics as a training program in everyone's PD personal development plans to make it mandatory? So as I want to graduate in our graduate program, let's look at ways of how we can make it mandatory for them to learn a tool like Tableau, right? So that they can almost on the onset, as and when they go into the business, they have that skill up their sleeve, which you can spin out some insights. So that's how we're working with HR to really kind of make a training program available, a skill belt. We're working with Tableau as well. But that's as far as our engagement goes with HR at the moment, and hopefully there'll be some more programs in place.
Awesome, thank you.
Gentleman there? Oh, sorry.
Sorry, I remember now. Your data catalog, so that will be your metadata repository.
Correct.
Also, all of your completed dashboards and everything searchable through there as well?
I'm not sure about the dashboards. I think the dashboards are published to server, so I would imagine our users can search for dashboards that they have access to via the server, Tableau server. So I think that's more around, the data catalog is more around the data side of things
Okay.
than finding that. But searching dashboards is Tableau server where you would do that.
Got it, cool.
Gentleman there?
One of the first points you made in the presentation was the globally different ways of reporting. China reporting one way, Western Europe reporting another way. Have you found as you've onboarded more users that's improved or worsened? One of the greatest challenges our company is going to be facing as we roll out Tableau is in the reporting governance, and data lineage and the data catalog, I think, are vital to dealing with that. But from a globally reporting perspective, almost all of our key initiatives are cross-functionally based, and we don't have the individual product owner.
Yeah.
How has that worked out as you guys have gone from, over the past year with rolling out Tableau?
Sure, yeah. So I think in terms of the improvements, there's definitely been improvement because now there's a central source, right? We're obviously not quite there yet because right now, what data gets ingested into the lake is very much dependent upon the MVPs that we're delivering. So it still is siloed today, but as and when we deliver an MVP and the self-service that we're doing as well, it's almost kind of coming together. So now what we're finding is that there's a lot more opportunity for our MWC, a mask confectionery business in China, to really work with our US guys and to collaborate, because it's not so much siloed anymore. So there's lots of more opportunities which are up and coming for them to kind of work together. And my ambassador program that I'm working on, I'm really focused on, is kind of looking at people from China, connecting them with our US business, and then all the data activities and all the adoption side of things, they really have that common platform that our program has really given them to kind of collaborate going forward. So I guess it's improving, but there's still a bit of work to be done. Sure.
So I work with Z at Mars. So the decision was actually made to not try and solve your problem to start with. They went for level 1 to say there's efficiencies that can be gained by getting these tools just out to people in parallel to solving the big problems. So rather than waiting 2, 3, 5 years to solve the problem, we just got on with it and did it. And then all those problems are going to get solved eventually, but you've got to start somewhere.
Yeah, so for us today, we've just literally given users the ability to use Excel and it's given the tools to see his point. Any other questions?
Are the majority of your users creators, or like how does that break down there, like creator, viewer?
So we only have 2 types of users today, and that's because we're on the older core-based model of Tableau server. So we've not really upgraded our server yet. We're on 10.5, I think. So we're not on the consumer, explorer, creator yet. What we have is explorer / consumer, and then a creator. So we have about, I think, if I was to think about how many licenses we have about 400 around across our organization. But most of our users are consumers, and they have Tableau server access.
Thank you.
Any other questions? No? Thank you for listening. Thank you all.